Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa. I'm James Creedon. These are the headlines this evening. In DR Congo, campaigning has been banned in Kinshasa ahead of Sunday's presidential vote. This after a day of tensions in the Congolese capital. We'll talk to our correspondent on the ground. And Madagascar goes to the polls in the second round of voting for a new president, but turnout is down since the first round at less than half of registered voters. This according to election observers. And turning garbage into art. We'll bring you a report from Ivory Coast on a creative project using discarded mobile phones, keyboards and radios. Hello and thanks for watching. Now we start in DR Congo, where it has emerged that more than 100 people have died in the northwest of the country over the past week. Those deaths are not related to the upcoming presidential election. They resulted from clashes between the Batende and Benunu ethnic groups. On Sunday, fighting broke out over the disputed location of a Benunu chief's burial, according to local activists. Now, the fighting in Maindombe province is some of the worst to hit the normally peaceful area in many years. Now, meanwhile, in the capital, Kinshasa, tensions ran high on Wednesday, with just days to go before voters go to the polls in a long-delayed vote to replace Joseph Kabila. Police fired tear gas to disperse opposition supporters after the governor ordered a halt to all rallies and campaigning. Governor Andre Kimbuta's decision follows crackdowns by security forces last week that killed 7 people and a fire that destroyed thousands of voting machines. Now, because of those complications, a delay in the vote is now possible, this according to the Electoral Commission. Let's take a listen to one of the opposition candidates, Martin Fayulu. He's reacting to the ban on campaigning in Kinshasa today.
We arrived in Kinshasa at 3:15 p.m, but we were blocked and couldn't go any further. I was meant to go to Gili, to the Place Sainte-Thérèse, to hold a rally, but Kabila was afraid of seeing 3 million Kinshasans in the street, the Place Sainte-Thérèse packed with people. So he stopped me from coming.
Martin Fayulu, their opposition leader. And earlier we spoke to France 24's Thomas Nicolon about the day's tensions in Kinshasa.
The situation is back to normal now in Kinshasa, but it was quite tense all day between Martin Fayulu's militants and the police. The opposition leader, Martin Fayulu, was supposed to hold a meeting today in Kinshasa, but the governor, Andre Kimbuta, ordered a halt to campaigning in the capital for security reasons. The governor says that in all political camps, extremists are preparing for a street confrontation with security forces. So the police had to set up a roadblock about 2 hours from downtown Kinshasa to prevent Mr. Fayulu, who was coming back from a meeting in another province, to go hold this Kinshasa rally. So then Fayulu's militants had been waiting for his arrival for several hours, and the tension rose as they realized that the authorities wouldn't allow Mr. Fayulu to hold his meeting. Some militants started throwing rocks at the police, which had to use tear gas to disperse Fayulu's supporters. The Electoral Commission is now considering postponing the election just for a few days. That would allow them to get all the voting machines that they need for the election on the 23rd of December, since a lot of those machines for the capital, Kinshasa, were destroyed in a fire last week. So the CENI might consider postpone, but some people at CENI still say that the election will be held on the 23rd of December.
Now, counting is underway in Madagascar following the second round of presidential elections on Wednesday, featuring 2 ex-presidents, Marc Ravalomanana and Ange Radzoual. Now, early indications suggest that a turnout in that poll was around 5% less than the first round, which saw almost half of registered voters abstain. Selena Sykes has the details.
Since 6 o'clock this morning, voters in Madagascar have been casting their ballots. Many hope the election will bring about real change.
Today is a great day for our country. I decided to vote because it will bring political stability. People are tired of disorder and poverty.
The choice is between 2 former presidents, Ange Radzoual, who came out on top in the first round, and Marc Ravalomanana, who was in power between 2002 and 2009, before being ousted by a military coup and fleeing the country. The 2 candidates are no strangers. Ravalomanana was pushed out by anti-government protests led by his current rival, who went on to take the top job. Both men cast their votes on Wednesday morning in the capital.
I am confident, and I think that the Malagasy people will decide once and for all who will lead the country.
I call on all of the Malagasy people to vote. This election is very important because the country and its people are at a crossroads.
An international agreement prevented the two from running in Madagascar's last presidential elections in 2013. The two candidates have spent their last few days on the campaign trail trying to win over apathetic voters. 45.7% of eligible voters chose not to cast their ballots in the first round.
Now for some other stories from across the continent. In the Sudanese city of Atbara, angry demonstrations over rising fuel prices have seen authorities impose a state of emergency. According to local authorities, the headquarters of Sudan's ruling National Congress Party in the city were burned down in the protests. A curfew has been imposed since 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. on Thursday morning. And gunmen have shot dead a former defence chief on a main road outside Nigeria's capital, Abuja, according to the country's Air Force. The attack underscores a worsening security situation in the vast West African nation. And South Africa has issued an arrest warrant for Zimbabwe's former First Lady Grace Mugabe. She's accused of assaulting a model with an electric cable in a Johannesburg hotel in 2017. Mugabe was granted diplomatic immunity at the time and returned to Zimbabwe, but that immunity was since overturned after the alleged victim challenged the decision. Now, the French authorities have upset non-EU foreign students by announcing a bill that will increase their tuition fees. After the US, Britain and Australia, France hosts the most number of foreign students of any country. Fees will go from €170 a year up to €2,800 for undergraduate students. Now, that might not seem like much, but this measure will put many foreign students under financial strain. Moroccans in particular are upset by the change. There are some 40,000 Moroccans in the French university system.
Bad news for the tens of thousands of Moroccan students who are preparing to register for French university. Their fees are set to multiply between 11 and 16 times, according to the level of study.
It's too expensive for our parents, so I'm going to change my plan. I'm going to go to another country. Why not? Or I'll graduate and do my master's here in Morocco.
This increase in fees is part of the Welcome to France plan. The program also triples the number of scholarships awarded to foreign students.
We know that our students, like others, often have difficulties in their first year in France, difficulties to find housing, to integrate into university life, to understand how it works. So the idea behind it is really to give a better experience with lightened visa procedures and on-site tutorials.
Questions still remain before the 2019 school year starts, and parents of students already in French education want them answered.
What we're asking for is an exemption for those with a French qualification, because it's the standard procedure and it's the reason why they chose to study in French in the first place.
A concern shared among higher education professionals.
It's the complete opposite of what we expected. The idea was to set up bridges that allow young people to leave, to be students in France and return home. Now only the privileged will be able to leave.
Those on modest incomes are already considering Turkey or China, while the Moroccan government hopes to increase their foreign student intake by up to 500,000.
And finally, an Ivorian artist has come up with a novel technique using discarded phones and computers to create colourful portraits. The idea is to draw attention to the growing issue of so-called e-waste in the capital, Abidjan. Laurent Berstecker has the story.
For years, Désiré Kofi has been combing the streets of Abidjan to search for electronic waste. Discarded phones, computers, keyboards and radios, as many materials that the young artist incorporates into his work. A way for him to make a living, but also to show that e-waste can be recycled, even with limited means.
My number one goal is to try in my own small way to reduce electronic waste that's found in the streets and in the bins. When residents have old phones or unusable ones, they call me to come collect them, and that wasn't the case before.
After breaking down the components, Kofi uses them to sketch out colorful human faces and urban landscapes, a painstaking process that usually takes 3 to 5 days to complete. Kofi's multimedia portraits have earned him international recognition, and with several exhibitions at home and abroad under his belt, the young artist already has his share of admirers.
He's an artist who, despite incorporating recycling material into his work, manages to capture all of these forms, faces and emotions, and that really blew us away.
With 5.5 million residents, Abidjan produces around 1,500 tons of e-waste each year, a statistic that's only likely to grow as new technologies evolve, and to which Désiré Kofi hopes to draw attention by showing that beauty can also be found in trash.
All right, that's all for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thanks for watching France 24.